Valentine's Day is right around the corner. I know it's time to start planning some budget-friendly dinners that are still Valentine's Day worthy, something special. I know we don't all want to brave the crowds and go out, and also don't all have an extra $200 in the budget to be spending on the expensive food at the restaurant. I'm showing you some budget-friendly meals. They're gonna be perfect for Valentine's Day.
For this first one, we're making baked chicken Parmesan, and this is like a classic, Italian restaurant dinner. And we're gonna make it baked so it's not that heavy, very oily version, but it's still very delicious. Just wanna start by whisking up 2 eggs. These are gonna be for dredging our chicken. And then for the breading, you just want about a cup of either plain breadcrumbs. I had a mix of like plain and panko, and then you can also use like the Italian seasoned if you have them. And then I was just using up the last bits of a bar of fresh Parmesan. You need about a 1/4 cup, but you can also just use the shaker cheese if that's what you have. You just want to add a 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder and a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, and just give that a good mix. I went in with my hands because it was just for my family and my hands were clean, but you can always use a fork or a spoon. And then I had 2 massively large chicken breasts. So if you have smaller ones, you may not need to slice them in half. You may just want to pound them out as they are. But we're going to take these 2 large ones and slice them in half. Then put some saran wrap over the top, and then you can either use a meat mallet. I could not for the life of me find my meat mallet, and I feel like it's been gone for a while, so it might be time for me to invest in a new one. But what you can do is if you don't have a meat mallet, you can actually use a rolling pin. So I just used my French rolling pin and just smacked the bejesus out of these chicken breasts until they broke down into about a 1/4 inch thick. You really want to have those nice thin chicken breasts. And this makes a ton of food. There's 5 of us in the family, and between the kids, they ate like a half each, not even. And so we ended up having 1.5 chicken breasts left over at the end of the night, which were perfect for us to eat. And later in the week, we ended up making a chicken parm quesadilla. So this makes a ton of food. If it's just 2 of you, definitely want to stick to 1 chicken breast. And then I'm just using a fork to grab each chicken breast and dip it in the eggs, make sure it's fully covered, and then put it into the breadcrumb mixture and make sure that that's fully covered. And I just put these on 2 baking sheets that were lined with parchment paper. And because it's just so large, like they actually filled up almost the whole, you would need 2 baking sheets for it, which is crazy. And then at the end, I did sprinkle over a little bit of extra breadcrumbs just for flavor and just to make sure that they got nice and covered. And you just want to bake these at 400 degrees for about 15 minutes. And once they come out, then we're going to sprinkle a few tablespoons, as much or as little as you like. Like I like mine nice and saucy, over the top of the baked chicken Parmesan cutlets. And we're also going to sprinkle on some mozzarella cheese. Alternatively, you could also use like fresh mozzarella, or you could use provolone cheese. That's also really good over the top of a chicken parm. So it's really up to you how you like it. And then you want to bake this for another 5 to 7 minutes, just until that cheese melts. And then I also cooked up some angel hair spaghetti on the side. You can use any type of pasta that you like. You can even use spaghetti squash. That's a nice healthier alternative. And I just like to cover mine in some sauce, make it nice and saucy, and then just serve those cooked chicken parm cutlets right over the top of the pasta. Sprinkle on a little fresh grated Parmesan, and you can use fresh basil leaves if you had it. I didn't, so I just used a tiny little bit of dried parsley, and this was absolutely Valentine's worthy, super inexpensive just for chicken breast and breadcrumbs, and it feels super fancy. All right, next one is not as fancy, but it's fun, especially if you're going to be spending the holiday at home with kids, or you just, want something very low key but cutesy, right? Maybe pizza and a movie, and really, really inexpensive, potentially based off of something you already have. So especially if you're doing like a no spend month, or you just really don't have that extra cash, this is going to be perfect. We're making heart-shaped tortilla pizzas. So you just take a burrito-sized tortilla, and just like you would cut paper, you use kitchen scissors to cut it into a heart shape. And then you just take simple pizza sauce, mozzarella cheese, whatever toppings you like. I like to do just pepperoni. This was for my kids, so they absolutely loved it. And then we're just going to air fry it at 400 degrees for no more than 4 minutes. It literally takes like 3 minutes, so it takes no time at all, and they're super cute. For this one, I tried to do like a little smiley face, which I thought kind of looked like creepier than I anticipated. So I really just like doing the regular pepperoni. Again, you can do all the toppings that you like, all the toppings that you want, and it's just a super inexpensive and easy Valentine's Day option. For the next one, I'm making a Ritz baked haddock, and I don't make fish as often as I would like to, but my husband and I absolutely adore this recipe, and it is reminiscent of what you get at a restaurant. We're also doing some Parmesan green beans, and on the side there, I had a copycat Red Lobster Cheddar Bay biscuit that was absolutely out of this world. That is in a separate video, so we're not going to specifically go over that. So I'll put that video, which is a copycat recipe video, down in the description box and at the end of this video, so you can check that out next. So I was able to just buy like a pound of fresh wild caught haddock. The funny thing was they were like cut up into these small pieces. So they weren't these beautiful fillets that I was kind of hoping for, but I guess this shows you that it doesn't have to be perfect for it to still be delicious. So I just laid those out on a parchment lined baking sheet. And at the same time, I was just microwaving and melting 6 tablespoons of butter. And then to that butter, I just added about 3/4 of a sleeve of crushed up Ritz crackers. So I just put those right in there, tried to mush them with my hands, mush them with a fork, and just got them all mixed up until they're kind of like a thick breadcrumb consistency. And then to that, I just added 3/4 of a teaspoon of dried parsley. That's for flavor and color. If you have fresh, you could totally use that too, but I find it's really easy and inexpensive just to use some dried herbs. And then you just want to evenly, best you can, sprinkle those Ritz crumbs right over the top of the haddock, and then take half of a lemon and just squeeze that juice right on top of there. Lemon juice tastes so delicious with fish. We're just going to bake these in the oven at 350 degrees for about 15 minutes until that haddock is fully cooked through and flaky. And in the meantime, I just had a bag of green beans. You do want to take some of the stems off if you see any in there that kind of have like bigger stems on them. Most of the time when you get a bag like this though, they're pretty like cleaned up, which is really nice. And then you just want to drizzle those green beans with about a tablespoon of olive oil, half a teaspoon of garlic powder, a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and then you can take the other half of your lemon and squeeze that right over the top of the green beans. And you want to try and do this in the 5 minutes that you're first cooking that fish, because we're going to pop this in the oven and cook it at 350 for 10 minutes. So you can kind of have everything come out at the same time if you do it that way. This is heavenly. I think this haddock was on sale for like $7.99 a pound. So it was about $7.99 for this. You have some Ritz crackers. I already had some around, and add in the green beans. So a little over $10 for this really incredible seafood dinner that is Valentine's Day worthy for sure. This next one is very Valentine's Day. It is Marry Me Chicken. This chicken recipe is absolutely delicious and very inexpensive to make. So I'm gonna start off by chopping up 1/3 a cup of sun-dried tomatoes. And this recipe makes enough for 4. So this is 4 boneless, skinless chicken thighs. And then you just wanna salt and pepper your chicken and dredge it in flour. Make sure that it gets covered fully front and back. And then in a medium or a large pan over medium heat, you wanna put 2 tablespoons of olive oil and melt 2 tablespoons of butter. And if you don't have like one or the other, it's fine if you just do like 4 tablespoons of one. That's going to be fine too. And then you want to put the chicken in the pan and you're going to brown it about 4 to 5 minutes on each side until golden brown and actually cooked through. So really make sure that that chicken is cooked through. If it takes a little bit longer, let it do that. And then we're going to transfer it to a plate and set it aside. Then add 2 teaspoons of garlic to your pan and saute for really like less than a minute. And then you're going to add 1 cup of chicken stock, or you could use water and chicken bouillon for this. And then here you just want to deglaze the pan. So I'm just scraping up the little brown bits off the bottom. There's tons of flavor in there. So this is an important part. And then you can add in 1 cup of heavy cream and 1/2 cup of Parmesan cheese. And you want to turn the heat down to medium low at this point and allow that sauce to simmer for a few minutes. And once it's simmering, you can add in just a dash of thyme and oregano, dried thyme and dried oregano. Then we're going to add in those sun-dried tomatoes, stir those around, and then add the chicken back to the pan and let that simmer for 3 to 5 more minutes. And what that's going to do is thicken up the sauce by kind of getting some of that flour that was on the chicken kind of back incorporated there. But the key to this is really this really flavorful and amazing sauce once you get those sun-dried tomatoes in there. I served ours over just instant mashed potatoes, like very simple, so you don't have to go do anything crazy. I know that this particular meal, it doesn't take a ton of time really, but it's just, you know, it's labor intensive at the time that you're going to make it, right? It's not a make ahead. but I think it would be fun to even cook together. It's perfect for Valentine's Day. This next recipe is another Italian classic. It's chicken Marsala, and this is my favorite recipe. And it's so easy that I actually made it on a pantry challenge in this video. So if I'm mentioning my pantry items, that is why. I have an amazing recipe I love to use for chicken Marsala, and it's on bettycrocker.com. So I will post that below for you as well. All the recipes that I do have, I will make sure that they are down below in the description box. So I am just cutting up what I have is a very large chicken breast. So this is going to be enough for us for dinner. And then I'm going to actually add like one little piece so that Dan can have some chicken Marsala for lunch tomorrow as well. So I'm just cutting it in half, and then I'm going to actually pound it out with a meat mallet. Make sure you put the saran wrap over the top there to make sure that the chicken doesn't splatter everywhere, because it, as much as you think it might not, it will. It will go everywhere. I've tried not to before, but you gotta use the saran wrap. And then I'm just like cutting this in half, because for us, one of these pieces is perfect for Dan, one of these half pieces is perfect for me, and then the kids will actually share like a smaller piece. But you know, you need more chicken, you have a bigger family, go ahead and do that. So I'm just taking my chicken and I am dredging it in some flour. It's that simple. Now take a couple tablespoons of olive oil and heat that in a medium pan over medium-high heat. And then to that, I'm just going to add in 2 cloves of finely chopped garlic, or I'm going to use a garlic press in this case, and 1 cup of fresh sliced mushrooms. I have baby bella mushrooms. I've used like regular white button mushrooms. Those work as well. It's kind of whatever you have. And I think like mushrooms you can buy dried too and then rehydrate them, which is a great thing to keep it in your pantry. So I'm just going to cook these up. The recipe also says to add in a 1/4 cup of fresh chopped parsley at this point, or you can use 1 tablespoon of parsley flakes, which is what I had. So I want to cook this for 5 minutes. And you want to add your chicken to the skillet and cook for about 8 minutes, turning once until brown on each side. Then you want to add a 1/2 cup of dry Marsala wine, which I did happen to have on hand, but the reason that I absolutely love this recipe and I feel like it's good for any time is that you can actually substitute chicken broth for this. So if you have chicken bouillon, that is all you need to add. Cook for 8 to 10 minutes until the chicken is fully cooked through and no longer pink in the center. And then you can see I'm adding just like a little bit of the pasta water to kind of bind the flavors. And then I'm going to add in some fresh cooked spaghetti. I was just cooking this on the side the whole time. I forgot to mention that earlier. And cooking that in there for just a few minutes. I cooked it to al dente, and I really like that because it really coats the noodles and gives them some flavor too. But I can definitely attest to making this with chicken broth in the past and knowing that it really tastes as good, if not better, with chicken broth versus Marsala wine. So if for some reason you don't have that, because it's, you know, it costs money just to buy Marsala wine for like one recipe, and I really have never seen another recipe that needed Marsala wine. So you don't need to buy it. It still tastes amazing with the chicken broth. So I'm just mixing everything really well together here, and this is what we had for dinner that night. Everybody loved it. Like, kids were a big fan. This is the first time that I've made this, I think, for the kids. Like, I haven't made it in a while, and I was really craving it, so I was happy that I had those mushrooms on hand and that this was what I was able to. I hope you have an amazing Valentine's Day. If you want to check out that copycat recipe video, it is right here.